Greetings and welcome back. Just got back from the Hot Rod Power Tour Saturday afternoon. A little bit of time to rest, recover, and get all of the stuff that didn't get done while I was on the tour started. One of the things that did get done while I was on the tour was on our way through Toledo, Ohio, we picked up a walking foot sewing machine. Anybody that's been on the channel for any length of time knows that I've got some costuming projects that we've been working on using leather, and I've got some plans for the '68 Mustang and my next automotive project that require the ability to sew something a little heavier than cloth. Currently we're using my wife's Brother SE400 and a walking foot add-on, and it really just hasn't been making the grade. So we stopped into Toledo Industrial Sewing Machines and picked up a Consew 1206 RB industrial walking foot sewing machine. Pretty much do 99% of anything I do with leather, and the other 1% I can hand sew. So today I'm going to see if I can figure out how this thing goes together, and then where I'm going to put it. Started out by dumping the parts that were in the plastic bag into this little plastic bin, and I have two of these, and an assortment of hardware, pretty blue hardware. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start with the legs and see if I can assemble those and work my way up. That way I will know how far I need to space the top pieces, because there doesn't appear to be a bar that goes across the top. I think for ease of assembly's sake, I'm going to turn this base around because I think I've got it backwards. I think this goes on that side. So I'm going to try and keep everything aligned as best I can. Turn this thing around. Alright, so now I've got the two legs turned upside down and backwards. I'm going to take these little rectangular things here that are threaded, and I'm going to put them inside here like this, and put this piece like that. Now, and this piece also is where the foot mounts, the foot pedal control mounts. Gonna cinch them down a little bit, but not real tight. Don't ever tighten everything down until you're done constructing it, because you're just going to have to take it apart again. And then I'm going to lay this way, and this piece goes right here. There are threaded inserts on the backs of the legs that these thread right into. Again, just putting them in finger tight so that I can get everything aligned. This bar you can tighten more tight. This bar you don't want to tighten yet because it can actually slide around, and I would assume that you would want to make it square. So once I get everything together, what I will do is I will check these to make sure that I've got everything squared here so that this piece is in right. But no, first I've got to go get it square. See? It moves. Okay, so I've got my speed square. And what I'm going to do is turn this like this And definitely not square. Turn this the other way. Okay, so got the bottom part together. It's a little bit squared up. I actually decided to move this a little further forward than I originally put it. Next thing I'm going to do, and I don't know if this is the right thing to do or not, but the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put these little pieces here on the insides of these channels, because I think they're for holding this in place. They look like it anyways. We'll find out. If they're not for this, they fit perfectly, so. These little pieces here, I'm going to put inside this channel. And I'm going to go ahead and lift this all the way up because I think that that's how we're going to want it. Now we're probably going to adjust it down a little bit, but I'm going to start with it all the way up. Next, I think I'm going to put the pedal on. I'm going to use these two little tabs. 2 bolts, 2 nuts, and of course the foot pedal. I think that goes in the back, I hope. So what these do is they go in like that. And then a bolt comes in from the bottom. Secures that there. Makes that in place. Didn't bring a wrench, and I don't know where that's where I want it, so I'm going to wait before I do anything with that. Through the holes. The isolators fit tight enough that I could put them on the carriage bolts and then put the nuts and washers on each screwed loosely. And I found even though I had to remove the front one, it made putting the motor on a lot easier. And as you see, with the front one off, you can slide the motor over the two and then put the last one on, and it holds in place fairly easily. A lot better than trying to hold on to this while you do it. Again, leave things loose so that you can line up the belts and everything when you're finishing the installation. From there, I adjusted the table to give me clearance around the legs and then used a ruler to measure the fronts and the backs, make sure I got everything squared up and got the table in a position that I was comfortable that it was going to be sturdy and supported. Then I used the front of the table as a reference to make sure that the tops of the legs were squared before I put them on, attached to the table. If you put them on and they're not square, they will be very, very difficult to adjust the height. Then just drill the pilot hole for the lag bolt, and install the lag bolts and tighten them down most of the way. Took a measurement at the base of the stand, since if I did this right, that shouldn't change, and then use the same measurement at the top to make sure that the legs stayed parallel. Double check my measurements at the front and back of each side of the legs to make sure that, again, they weren't crooked, and then drilled pilot holes and cinched them down with the lag bolts. Took the sewing machine head out, checked to make sure I had all the parts, and then set that aside. Put the little pieces that hold the hinge in place, since there's two. Set the pan and all of the little rubber corners that fit in the things of the pan into the table. And this pan is important. It contains a couple of things. A, this is where the oil for the self-lubrication aspect comes in, and it is the place that has the little lift for the pressure foot. I originally thought I was going to put the hinges in and then put the machine in onto the hinges. That didn't work out. Put the hinges on the machine and then drop the hinges into those little gray slots. Works better that way. I was able to press the hinges into the holes, and then once I set the machine in place, just press them down into the little gray retaining pieces. Put the belt through the slot around the servo motor, and then tip the head back and put the belt on the hand wheel. Put the pulley guard on and undid all of the electrical wiring and laid it out where it was going to be plenty clear of all of the belts and stuff like that, and then attached the front switch. Then, using the provided little clips, I went through and made sure that all of the wires were fastened out of the way and hammered them in place. Started fastening the linkage between the servo motor and the foot pedal, and this is where I discovered that I actually had it adjusted properly, and I ended up having to move this thing 2 or 3 times. So if you start in the first hole from the right and the fourth, you should be able to get it adjusted to line up. And this, the camera was positioned very poorly, but these are for the most part pretty easy to do. Fasten the base pole on the table. It's the one with the washers and nuts. Then put the top pole together using the ones that hold the thread and the thread guides. The thread guides, the top piece is the one with the little spring clips that go in it. Once you have the top assembled, then you screw it all together and adjust it, place things where they need to go. Put the thread bases through the thread stems, I don't know what to call those, studs, whatever, the things that hold the spools of thread, and then fasten those to the bottom bracket. Connect the presser foot thing for the knee. This is so that when you use your knee to swivel that, it will lift the presser foot. Saves having to work it by hand. Once you get it installed, it'll take a little adjustment. So this little plastic bar here goes in this hole behind the table. It's the rest bar, so when you put the head back, it rests on that. I forgot to turn the camera on when I was installing it. The other thing that I forgot to install, or I forgot to turn the camera on for, is this little piece right here. It's in a little package, and it drops right in there like that, and that is so when you raise the knee lift, it lifts up. And last but not least, position the bobbin winder for proper tension and alignment to make sure that it's in line, otherwise it'll track off the belt. And then screw it all down. So everything's together and function tested now. It works really, really well. Quite happy with it so far. Used it for a couple of projects. I don't normally do assembly type things like that on the channel, but the reality of the situation is if you're not lucky enough to live close enough to buy one of these things and have it delivered assembled, then you ordered it online and it came much like mine did in a bunch of boxes. And assembly wasn't quite as straightforward as I was expecting it to be. And the factory Consew video on assembly is kind of like watching paint dry. So anyways, I videotaped it, put it together, and figured I'd put it up there. Might be one or two people out there that look at this and go, hey, that's kind of handy to know, thank you. The other thing is that in the next video, I'm going to do what is probably the next most popular thing after people get it together. And that's reduce the speed to something usable for those of us that are not professional sewers. See you next time.